How's it going, guys? This is Franco Soto with the Harlingen Public Library, back again with another painting video for y'all on this chilly February afternoon. All the paints that you're going to need, we're going to throw that in the description for y'all. And then we also have just varying brush sizes throughout this video, from these really wide ones to some smaller, more narrow ones for these finer details here. So I would suggest just get a variety pack at any one of these like art supply stores, or order one online, and that pack should have pretty much every size that I have here. I'll go ahead and I'll put that advice as well in the description of this video. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start this off. While I was setting this whole space up, I realized that I forgot to mention 3 key things that you are also going to need. One of which is a cup of water. Another one is one of these trays, or some sort of styrofoam plate, or maybe just a plate that you don't mind getting dirty and don't just throw it away later. But these I find are really good because they're disposable and you're gonna worry about them, really cheap. And then some paper towels. Let me explain how we're gonna start this out. So we're gonna make what I call a wash, which is this part right here. And with that, we're gonna basically just like map out our image onto the canvas. And it'll make it easier because we'll have things kind of like in perspective, and we're not just gonna be just jumping from one spot to the next, trying to guess where things kind of are. We'll actually have a little we'll give ourselves a map, so to speak. I was trying to decipher which would be a better wash. Orange, because there's a lot of oranges in there, or blue, because blue is throughout the whole thing, even though we don't really see it. And I decided with the blue wash because it is a little bit more opaque, which means that it's thinner, and therefore will be easier to paint over after we've mapped everything out. So I picked this sort of like beachy scene, and it has a lot of like geometric lines. I have some straight edges here that I might use to lay some of these lines. Right now, it doesn't really matter. We're not trying to be super perfect, and I just want to kind of get that across, okay? So, with that being said, let's go ahead and dump that in here and try to just wipe the excess off here on the cup. And then we're gonna go over here, and I already made some, but all I really did was just pull some of this and just do this. And as I did that, it kind of just thins out the color so that it's not so dark. And we want to we're looking for something in this lighter area, something like this, because we don't want it super dark, because we are, like I said, going to be painting over it. So I'm going to start right here from the bottom and make my way up. So let's do that. So I've got this yellow part right here. I'm getting a little bit more water just because, like I said, I really want it to be opaque and thin, especially because this is the yellow part here. So in relation to this, let's go with, see, and like I said, it's very, very thin. It's very see-through at this point. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, guys. Remember, we're just kind of mapping things out where they're gonna be. Oops, see, that was too much water. Just dab that. At this point, we can do a little bit of a dab like this. It's okay, because we don't have a lot of paint on the brush, or on the painting itself, actually. This is going to be all that red part. And then we have this little door. We can throw the door on already here. It's slightly taller than this building we have. So let's just go straight down like that. And if you're noticing, I'm not really getting any more water. I'm not getting any more anything else. I'm just simply using that little bit that's there to kind of work with. more. See, again, I'm fixing these errors that I had right here. This is where my building's gonna end. I'm gonna go with just a tad darker of a line so that I know that that is the building behind it. And then I'm gonna add this top building is right here, sort of like there, so I'm gonna draw that right there. But we have everything at this point mapped out. We're gonna wanna just distribute some of these wet spots to kind of give us a harder line already. And you see how all I'm doing is basically just kind of saying, hey, this is where this is going. This is where this is going. I'm gonna go ahead and we do have this here, so I'm gonna throw that in here with a little bit of a smaller brush. I was using about like this size of brush, right? I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm gonna move to, because this is a smaller detail, one of these smaller little guys. I think I'll go with this one. This is sort of a really thin one. And we'll use that to kind of just map out a little bit where this palm tree is gonna be. And bam, there we go. Okay, so there is where the sea is. I have my little palm tree going off in the distance here. And then the sea's like right there. So we're gonna let that dry and then we'll get back to it. I started making this like orangey, yellowish color for down here. Now, with that, I mixed this orange that I have with cream and a bit of this canary yellow. Get a little bit of orange, mix that up. And you know what? Let me just throw a teensy bit. And here we go, here we go. Look at, that's on like sort of like a macaroni, right? Little macaroni yellow, or macaroni orangish yellow, I guess, right? So with that, because we have these lines, we can just sort of fill that in. These edges right here, just paint them. It looks nicer, okay? And you'll paint a coat of that every time you put a coat of this orangey stuff. It's nice to have those edges done so that if you don't have a frame, it still looks okay. So while we kind of let that dry and fan it every now and again, one idea that I did have is let's go ahead and try to get this background out of the way. So we're gonna flip the painting and we're gonna work just on the sky, which is literally just one solid color. Let's go ahead and flip that puppy around and we're gonna work on just getting essentially this area right here covered. Let's go with this one for right now. This is probably one of the biggest of all the brushes that I have. So this is the one we're gonna use. All I'm doing is, again, kind of the same process. Pull from the edges, and it might clump here in the back. That's why you kind of do this. Okay, you kind of just press it, and then we're just gonna start up here. All I'm doing right here, I'm not really concerned. I'm trying to map out, leave that negative space where the buildings are supposed to be. See, and this sort of technique helps to kind of avoid that like hard line, which is just like I'm just kind of tapping it. If you do find, like right here, I find that it is a little too dark, I'm going with a completely dry, unused brush, and I'm gonna try to take that out. So, we'll let that dry, let this finish drying, and then probably come back, give this another coat, and then we'll work onto these other ones. Why don't we go ahead and start getting into more of the meat and potatoes of this, and let's go with these two, or at least try to get started with this one right here, okay? So that one is more of a reddish color, like a brick color. We are gonna try and kind of make that same color with this red. I might throw some orange in there, but I'm gonna kind of stick mainly with red. I'm gonna go just straight red onto it and see, yeah, see? Yeah, that's pretty. I'm not going very close to this area. I'm trying to, and I'm also not getting a lot of paint. I'm trying to use a little bit of paint that I have on this because this red is not very forgiving. And I'm doing these circling motions to kind of get rid of some of the brush strokes that I have in there. So I'm getting a little bit more, just a little bit of the tap there, and I'm kind of just putting it all over. This front part, as you can tell, of course, because of the shadow, this part's a little bit darker. So I'm gonna make that part a little bit darker right now by just barely getting a little bit of here, like this here. You see how there's hardly any? Tap here, just a little bit of a darker color, and then just kind of filling that in. Just so that I know this is that darker area, this is the darker part of the building. Okay, I'm gonna go back again, just a little bit of the red, a little bit of the blue, mix it together, make that kind of like darkish, reddish color, and just kind of splotch it on there. It doesn't have to be perfect again right now because we are going to go back and do multiple coats of this as well. We are pretty much good here. I'm gonna get some of that just pure red and just add it right there and on these areas, just so that I can maintain that hard line that's there. Now what I want to do is, you see how I have these areas of like darker red, and what it's doing is it's staining and just leaving its mark in that specific area. So what I'm gonna do is just a little bit more of that water and put it right here, and that'll help me sort of blend it up just a tad. So we are good there. We'll let that dry. We'll probably add this little portion here next. So I'm gonna fan this for a bit, probably mix up some more of this color for here. We'll see you guys in a few. Okay guys, so I've been fanning this one a little bit more. That's pretty much dry already over here, and this is for sure dry. So we're gonna put that extra coat onto this one now. So the way we made that again was that cream, yellow, and the orange. And mix that up, mix this over here, and that's pretty much it. So go. See, and with this one, I want a little bit of a darker pigment, so I grabbed just a little bit more of that orange, just so that I can cover up that blue and fill in those whites. Okay guys, so we're gonna let that dry. I've already fanned it kind of a little bit. Let's go ahead and work on this door area right here. So let's work on putting the brown in there first, and then we'll work everything else from that. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna use maybe like a smaller brush like this, just so we'll get that covered really quick. And I'm gonna work from the inside out. We have just a regular earth brown, as they say here. And we don't need a lot. I just put like a little bit of a glob, because literally, I mean, we're gonna probably go with other coats like everything, just because of, like I said, this is very opaque paint. But we also just kind of want to map out exactly where the door is gonna be. It's a fairly narrow door, so it's probably just going to be up to like maybe, let's see, yeah, to like about here. And let's just carry that up. And you see how I'm just doing like little splotches to try to maintain a straight line. But once we do those splotches, then we can just pull back. Underneath it as well. There's that door. Okay, we'll let that dry before we do the blue part. And we're gonna start at least doing this part up here. So we'll see you guys in a few. Okay guys, so we are gonna be painting this back building over here. I went and I threw together, again, a mix of like some orange, some yellows, and a little bit of this white. And I made this light orangey color, and so we're gonna hit it with that. Also, I did also notice that this is somewhat of a similar color to this one over here that we're kind of going towards. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna add a shade of yellow to this one down here so that it doesn't really get lost. So this upper portion is like a pinkish color. So I'm gonna switch this here really quick. And I have this like pinkish color already here. Probably be not too much that we need. So I'm gonna go in. Let's just do a simple cover the area that needs to be painted pink, and then we can decide where to go from there. I am going to add just the faintest bit of darkness here. So I'm gonna get just a little bit of my red, just a very, very tiny bit of the red, and add it to this pink. So I'm gonna make this edge here, and we know we're not gonna go any further than that with the pink. So from that, I'm gonna use this kind of little brush right here to do this little tealish, bluish part. I have a little, this color right here, what is this? Light turquoise that we're gonna use. Again, we don't need a lot of it, okay? So, I'm gonna pull some of it here. If we notice, it's darker to lighter. We're gonna do it all one color and then we'll add that darker part afterwards. So let's just go ahead and use this. And again, we're more than likely gonna do multiple coats of this. So right now we're gonna take care of the last bit of the white spots that we have, which are this area and then this area over here. We're gonna start, basically what we're gonna do is just fill in some of this blue, and then we'll fill in the blue from like the waves and all that other stuff. Then we'll paint over that with this darker color. And then over here, it's kind of like a darkish color, so get that out of the way pretty quickly and we're good to go. I'm gonna use this pretty fine, like thin brush right now, and that's just gonna be to fill in this sort of like area and these areas over here. Okay, so let's go and get to it. So now that that's pretty much taken care of, we're gonna go ahead and we're going to work on the sea portion and the wave portion of this area. I'm gonna use this like, it's almost like a Christmassy green along with this light turquoise. And hopefully we can get something close to that color. So let's mix these two up. Okay, and I just put a little bit, and I'm gonna mix it with this small brush. Let's see what we get. A little bit over here, some of this, somewhere around there. We'll eventually get it. More or less. We're gonna like imply the waves first of all, and then we'll fill in those waves with maybe like some of that cream color that we have, or just flat white that I have. Covering all the way down here, but we don't want it to be as thick up here. As thick as it is up here, we don't want it that thickness down here. So just keep that in mind as you keep going. Just make sure you're also always looking at the reference. I am constantly like glancing over at the reference. So, and now that I'm looking at this little window that we have is almost a similar color to up here. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put that window in here right now. Okay, so I'm mixing it here. We're gonna do that one. Okay, so since we have all this covered up, this all covered up and everything like that, let's go ahead and do this little palm tree really quick. That one we will do with, again, this small little one here. And that one we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna use this darkish green, and then we'll probably mix it with some of the blue to make like a dark green, a really dark green. I'm gonna throw a little bit of brown in there. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry. We're probably gonna have to fill out some stuff around it. So let's go ahead, and I experimented with the same technique that I did here, kind of over here, but we do need to put that second layer. So this is still a little bit wet, so we're gonna do the layer here first, and then we'll work probably towards over here, okay? So this part and this part, that's what we're gonna focus on right now. So let's go ahead and get to it, guys. Okay, so while that part dries, we're gonna go ahead and start working on putting the waves here in this area. I'm gonna use the cream to do that. And I'm actually gonna use this brush. It's like a bristle brush. Use that brush, and I'm gonna get a little bit of that cream. And twist this around. And I'm gonna go from the bottom and sort of like do this to it. And I'm gently just tapping it. Okay, and then what we're gonna do after that is sort of blend that out with a little bit of the seafoam color. Just a teensy bit of the blue, and we'll go in like this, and sort of make those the waves just a tad bit more convincing. Okay, so there we go. And let that dry, and we're gonna work on this next. We are back. Now this area was still drying a little bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and work on right here and this area over here for now, just to let that part dry. This is gonna be basically our last layer for these buildings. Which is where we're gonna try to get that true color from. We are gonna have to do one last layer on basically these two because we have these shades. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that last orange layer up here. And that one we're gonna kind of muddy up. I'm gonna mix it with a little bit of yellow and maybe just a teensy bit of that cream. I'm gonna start with this one. And then remember, guys, this right here, it's gonna be darker. So I'm gonna go in with just a true orange to try to make those edges kind of pop, but not go as light as I have up here. True orange, a little bit of cream, and we are going to try and maintain that edge there. So right here, my edge is kind of being a pain, so I'm gonna use those hardline tools that I had mentioned to you guys. Which is basically just a roller. Just put this right here to make sure that we are actually going on that. So it should be right there. So see, I'm still missing a bit of my edge there. So what I'm gonna do is with those last remnants of that light color, I'm just gonna kind of go up to the edge of that ruler. I don't want a lot of paint on my brush because it might seep underneath. So we just get a little bit and we just kind of go a little to that edge there, but not all the way. Okay, so hopefully that worked. And bam, yeah, it seems to have worked pretty well. So that's good. That's what we want. A straighter edge. And we're good to go. Okay, so we're gonna kind of let that dry. I'm gonna fill in some spots over here, and then we'll go and we'll hop to this red part. I messed up just a little bit right here. I noticed, I'm sure y'all have noticed as well. But again, that's where these kind of come into play and it helps a lot. So let's look at that. According to this, I'm kind of not too straight of line. So that we're gonna hit with just some true orange and just slowly sort of pushing it up. Let's go ahead and move on to this red one. So we need red and some of that cream so we can do a similar technique to what we did with the orange. Some of that red, some of that cream, mix it together and just go over it. Now I know you guys are probably freaking out like, oh my God, that's pretty white. Just go back over it with the red and you'll be good to go. So that gave us that like sort of chalky, you know, looking color that we got up here. We also have it down here now, which is what we wanted. So let's go ahead and get these last bits of paint brushed out and we are good to go. Okay, so that is the red painting or the red buildings coat. We are still doing coats on this other side too. I know I didn't really hit this side on either on this one or this one, but that's because I have these edges drying up and I kind of want to wait for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and paint this pinkish area up here. I'm gonna use the same brush that I had before because I kind of want to darken that pinkish area. Because if you'll notice, it is a bit of a darker pink, and it's darker right here than it is up here. Let's go ahead and just use that little bit of red that we have, dip it in the pink. See, and that gives us more of a true color. There we go, that's what we want. Let's move on to this square over here. We're gonna give it one final thing, and then we're gonna try to work on this portion right here. So we'll try to work on that right now while this other top part's dry, okay? Okay, so like I said, we're gonna be moving on to this area, and I'm gonna work on the window first, just because I did make the window a little too big the first time around. So let me go in, and I'm gonna go in with that handy dandy bristle brush. And if you notice, we got light, and two darks because the light's coming from this right side over here. So I'm gonna work on these light parts first, and then we'll get to the darker parts. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put this right here to map out, okay, this is where my light parts are. And then I'm gonna go in with a little bit of that red, a little bit of that yellow, a little bit of that orange, a little bit more yellow. You're gonna have to be going kind of do what you will. You see how it's kind of giving me that color. Okay, so I'm gonna get that and that, and that's pretty implied what's going on there. Let's go ahead and add some yellowish orange to the top of this guy. Okay, see, and that already looks, I don't know if you guys can see, I'm gonna zoom in just a tad. Let's see. But you can see it's already starting to look a little bit more 3D than it did. So I'm gonna keep doing that. Work with what we got, and then we'll attack that again once it's kind of dried. So from here, we're gonna jump over to, oops, my bad, to right here. If I can adjust this camera just enough. There we go. Now we're gonna work on adding these fine details, which is the details around the door. So it would seem that around it, we have this little doorway here, which means it goes in. This is also going in, which is why we have that darker area. And then this is a little ridge of the door that's kind of being hit by the light. We're gonna do the same process with this, and all I'm gonna do is get a darker, like a darkish red, and go right here. Now, in order to make that darkish red, in this case, I'm gonna use a little bit of a brown, just because this red really likes to turn into purple. So, go with a little bit of this brown, and a tiny bit of the red. I'm sorry, can't see that. And a tiny bit of the red, and I'm just gonna slowly make You see what I'm doing? So even I'm doing like I'm just kind of spotting it, like splotching it onto here. That's easier because I can splotch in a straight line easier than I can just run my hand in a straight line. I know I'm using a lot of brown, but you're gonna go and just add a little bit of red to it. That way it looks uniform with the building that it's actually attached to. And keep doing that. Okay, and again, I got a little too much paint there, so I'm gonna dry it up with a dry brush. We did that outside edge. Now we need to do the inner edge. The inner edge, essentially the same idea, but instead of the brown, we're gonna go with a little bit of the cream with the red. So we're going to get the same sort of color that we have here, a teensy bit of that white, and just ever so gently do the exact same technique on the outside, on the outer edge. It's a little bit harder to do this one because the white has a tendency to really want to blend. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm kind of just pulling it all the way to the edge of this teal color that I did, and then I'll just go ahead and I'll go over that area. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this really fine, sort of like this really fine paintbrush, and I'm gonna go in right here just to kind of hit those details just a tad more. And so I kind of fine-tuned this area going down here, right? We have this lighter part kind of like whitening up or drying up. Again, same sort of technique that I did where I got a little bit of the red, a little bit of the brown. I'm gonna get a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit, just a tiny little bit. Because we don't want it pink. You know what I mean? We want it that funky brown. Okay. And that's giving it its edge. And I guess we do want it a little pinkish. So again, this looks kind of funky right now because we're overlapping that teal, which we're gonna go in and we're gonna, you know, fix that tealish area. So with this, let's go ahead and get that muddy, reddish, pinkish, weird color that we made. And see, we're just kind of helping to harden those lines there. Okay, and the inside part of the door is all we have left to do. On this part, we're gonna do this and hit these areas really quick, and we're pretty much almost done. Okay, so next was this area. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of finish hardlining out this area here, and then this section is pretty much kaput. It's done. So let's do that super quick. Again, I'm gonna use this very thin like a paintbrush that I have, okay? All I'm gonna do is that same sort of process. I'm gonna get that yellow, a little bit of that white, mix it up over here, a teensy bit of the orange, and I'm gonna fill in right here. And then from there, all we really gotta do is get some of this yellow, some of this orange, mix that together. I'm just gonna fill that over here with a little bit of brown, just the smallest amount of brown. And we're gonna line that darker area up here towards the top. And then just drag that down. Good to go there. And this thing has a bit of a darker area right here too. So we're gonna add that shadow as well. That way we can say, yeah, we are done with one little area there. So I'm gonna grab just a teensy bit of this brownish color, just a little bit. And then I'm gonna go over here and just hit it like that. There we go. That gives sort of an implication of that color being shaded. We still need a little bit of a hint of that teal. I'm gonna grab a little bit of teal. I guess a little bit of green that I have left over here. A little bit of teal, a little bit of green. And then I'm gonna go over that brownish area. So I'm dirtying up that tealish sort of color that I made over here with a little bit of that brown. And that's what's gonna be filled in where our shadow is. Then, just so it doesn't look like so much of a hard line, we're gonna fan it out just a tad, just a tad. Make sure you have a very dry brush when you do this fanning. I'm gonna fan it just a tad this way so it doesn't look too fake. All right, now we're going to go. Just a very simply implied little shade there. And we're good to go from that. We are going to be moving on to filling in this area here. I'm making this, it is like a bluish color, right? So I'm gonna have this with a little bit of some blue. Let me throw some blue over here next to it. And then we're gonna go in and just fill this in really quick. Okay, so now the door is all one color, but if we look at this, there's a bit of a shade. So I'm going to get that darker blue, a little bit of that brown, right? Darker blue and the brown. And I'm gonna set myself a little area of where it's gonna stop. And then you want it to go all the way across. So again, this is where you can use one of your hardwiring things. Just make sure that you're stopping at the same spot. So I'm gonna stop right here and right here with it. If we look at our reference, even the door is a little bit darker also, so we're gonna have to do the same thing with the door, and I'm gonna use a little bit of that blue again. Okay, so the brown, this bottom part at least, is done. Door's done, window's done. Now, we're gonna fill this area up. Okay, so this other side basically just needs that orangey color. So I'm just going to throw orange on the sides here. Cool, so that's pretty much almost done. A little bit of this orange, and I'm going to do the shadow coming from this building over here. Awesome, look at that. Look at how nice that looks. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Let's let that dry and then we'll see if we need another coat, okay? I'll be right back, y'all. So, let the painting dry for about a day because I wanted to let everything dry completely so that if I did need to go back and make these like simple corrections, I can literally just paint right over it. And all I did was just make that same color and I painted right over it because I wasn't really happy with how this came out. I'm not happy with how this bottom part came out either. So when we do this blue part, I'm gonna paint over that as well. And I will be using the sharp edge to try to get these angles over here a little bit better. So let's go ahead and start with this corner over here. So I've got pink and the white. Right, and that's actually a little too bright for me, so let's add a little bit of that pink. And you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add just a teensy little bit of some red. Okay, so let's see. Aha, there we go. I want something with not as much white in it. We are going to do the straight edge trick again. Lay this right here and just kind of work up to that edge as much as we can. We are good to go on that one. It actually looks like there's a thing falling. I'm really starting to love this painting the more and more that we get into it, y'all. Okay, so we've worked on that. Now let's color this inside color. Okay, so let's go back into that with a little bit of brown, a little bit of red. Okay, so we're mixing that out to the side, a little pink there, like that. So, we're done with that little window. We're done with these other areas here. We need the palm tree, redoing the waves, and covering this up. So right now, let's go ahead and do the sky. So, with that being said, time for our trusty little ruler here. Gonna leave that, make sure it's lined up on the sides over here perfectly. And I'm gonna go in again with the straight, just navy blue. A little bit of that blue. And I'm gonna try to get some of the blue off here. Go in, just get a big old blob of that blue. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. It's very, very fun for me to do this. We plan on doing a lot more in the future, so stay tuned for that. All right, and again, I'm gonna cover up this whole green part over here that I messed up and try to be as perfect as I can over here. So let's go ahead and do that. Get some more blue, and we're on our way. That blue part is now done. So we're gonna let that dry, and then we're gonna work on this, and then we'll be good to go. So we'll see y'all in a few. Let me just go ahead and dry this stuff off. Okay, guys. So we went ahead, let that blue part dry, or at least the part around it is dry. So we're gonna go ahead and start here in this area here, redoing that palm tree super quick. Y'all, that should be about it. So that's it, guys. That's the end of the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I know I did, but I really do enjoy doing these painting videos for y'all. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. We also have a Facebook and an Instagram as well. Make sure to follow us on all those social media platforms. Okay, guys, so that does it for us here with the Harlingen Public Library. Look out for another one of these painting videos. Hopefully it'll be coming up soon. Okay, guys? You have a good one. Bye-bye.